I got with Bumpy Johnson in the 40s. You understand? When he came out of prison, we went to Dannemore. We did 10 years flat. 48 when I first met him. I got busted in 48. Then I went away. When I came back home, I did 7. At that time, he had got another bus. So while he was away, his wife had me, I come up and I took over the business and run it for him. Now, behind all this, drugs started coming in from the east side. You understand? But at that time, he wasn't there. He was away. Now, I guess buses would go to Fed. When we went up there in the Fed, it just closed Alcatraz. I was in Atlanta. We went from Atlanta back to Lewisburg. Then we came out together in 1965. Drugs become prominent there. We started off having good drugs, you know? So now, here's the main thing you got to remember about drugs. We control the drugs. Like the kids nowadays don't do it.
Who controlled these drugs?
At the time?
Yes.
The beginners them had it. But we control it in this form. Anything that's done in your neighborhood must be controlled by you. In other words, no one can sell nothing in our neighborhood unless we give it to him. So unless he bought it from us. See? And you just don't come in and start selling those drugs or just selling those people. Not in our neighborhood that we don't create, because at one time we couldn't come on this hill because the Irish Duke and the Hancocks, the Irish boy, we had to fight to come from Brandeis Avenue up to St. Nicholas. You had to fight.
So all of this was about the same time as Lucky Luciano.
Well, that was Lucky was faded out because Lucky and Bumpy was in Dannemore at the time. You know, before that, you know, huh? And Dannemore and him became very good friends, and Lucky loved him. You see? Lucky thought the world of him. And that was his man. So when Bumpy told him, because at the time he was a young boy, though, you understand? Bumpy told him, hey, y'all got all this shit in Harlem? Well, this is Harlem. This is black person. This is our stomping ground. We get a piece of this, a piece of that, and nothing's going to happen. But the only one that didn't want to go along with that was, what's this old fucking crazy ass motherfucking name again? He was the one that they wound up killing, you know? Duck Short. See, Duck Short wants to shake down everybody. They told him, no, my name guy's right. It's their neighborhood. They're supposed to get something out of it. So behind that, a black woman that had the number at the time, remember, number started as a Bolita. Number was never those 3 figures. Number was Bolita, and the Bolita was a lady called Madam Queen. She brought this here from Cuba. That's when the number came to Harlem. Then Bumpy them incorporated to 3 figures. See? That's what number. Now it's such a penny ante game, but it was so much in it. Because you know when people are poor, they got to do something for some money.
Nicky Barnes, who for 7 years in the 1970s was godfather of the largest and most profitable heroin selling operation in the history of New York City. Between 1973 and 77, Barnes was arrested variously for homicide, bribery, drug dealing, and gun possession, but none of the charges stuck. He became a Harlem legend and very rich, and whatever he had, he flaunted, be it women or Rolls Royces.
Everybody looked at the Italian era. Everybody looked at the Bumpy Johnson, looked at that era and thought that was the era. But when Nick organized this, man, people had began to take on a sense of pride that they might as well wear a 3-piece suit, a Brook Brothers suit and some gator shoes and come out because it was real now.
These kids today, you know, they might see 100,000 in a year. Back then, they were seeing 400,000 in an hour. Back then, we shared the wealth.
You had never seen this kind of money coming into Harlem. We're talking about $50,000, $60,000 a day in one block. And we're talking in a small block. 50,000, 60,000 easily, $100,000 made. One block.
They were driving Rolls Royces, changing cars like people were changing shoes. They were going on trips. They were going to Switzerland, Italy.
After a basketball game, he'll just say, yo, man, everybody get in the car, man. You know what I'm saying? Everybody get in the cars, man. Get as many as you can in each car, man. We going to Puerto Rico, man, and just drive right out. Just drive, just get in the car, and just drive out to the airport, and his plane's waiting.
Each individual's interest was the interest of everyone else.
When a guy said, man, one day I would love to drive a Mercedes-Benz, and got in contact with Nick, in 2 weeks it could happen. Just a simple Nick saying, yo, take that.
But in 1977, Barnes, who had been arrested 13 times on various charges but never convicted, was indicted once again.
The dynasty had switched, and the move was made, and God was the man.
If you
can give you props out of fear. People can give you props out of respect. He got his out of respect.
He went from selling jeans out of a van at 18th Park, man, to listen on top of the world. The guy bought the Apollo Theater.
He saw his dream come true, where he took over the Apollo Theater, fixed it up, and he wanted to open it with me, and we opened it, and here was the success.
How many niggas buy the Apollo Theater, man? Let's be for real, man. I mean, we talk about a monument. We talk about a landmark. We talk about, man, the Apollo Theater, man. We talk about my mama was going to the Apollo Theater when it was 75 cents, man. My mama's 65. Feel what I'm saying to you?
The Apollo was the biggest thing for Afro-American people that was going on.
These niggas is getting illegitimate. These niggas getting no legitimate money. They're getting drug money, man. These niggas buying the Apollo. That was like buying the fucking Empire State Building. You hear me?
People came from everywhere, not just for the night, the entertainment of Stevie Wonder, not just the fact that Teddy P was going to be there. No, not just because of that, but the fact is they might happen to get a chance to get a picture.
Niggas had minks, chinchillas, all types of furs, all types of girls was coming out there. Cars was triple parked.
125th Street, I hadn't seen that in a long time.
I think God's biggest mistake was buying Apollo. I mean, personally,
Everything was fine with the Apollo Theater until NBC, National Broadcasting Company, wanted to televise Amateur Night again from the Apollo Theater on a Saturday night. And they gave them this big contract, whatever it was in terms of money and for how many amount of years. And you know, when corporations start getting into doing that, they look a little deeper at what's involved, who's involved. And somebody picked up the name Guy Fisher and said, well, this is the same guy that's supposed to be hooked up with Nicky Barnes and this whole drug thing. And I think from that point on, people got suspicious, and I think they canceled the deal.
it was going to never let him succeed. I mean, you know, because, you know, once a black man really get on top, even if the Apollo did had been successful, I mean, it was going to be something. It was going to be an investigation or who owned the Apollo, and then everything was going to hit the fan anyways.
It was his era now. Sure, he wasn't the Bronx, Queens, Harlem. He had went beyond Harlem. It wasn't guy from Harlem, guy from 18th, guy from the Bronx. It was beyond that now.
Seen Guy have meetings, man. You understand? And all this crew got on ice and minks and two-tone Benzes, and Guy wearing Chuck Taylors, man. You know what I'm saying? Guy wearing Converse, Chuck Taylors to meetings. Guy the biggest nigga at the meeting, all right? And Guy got on a pendant that might cost $10,000, $15,000.
Guy had become the guy that everybody wanted to know. All the chicks wanted to know. Everybody that was somebody wanted to know. If you know how to play ball, you wanted to go wait 5 or 6 hours to play ball just so maybe you could play against this kid.
Seeing Guy, Fisher, and Nate Tiny Archibald talking. So I looked at them, and, you know, I wanted to be like Tiny as far as, you know, the kind of person he was playing NBA, going to college, you know, that was me. And I wanted to be like Guy Fisher because Guy Fisher was just Guy Fisher. I had mad respect for him. When he came around, you know, everybody just looked at him like he was a movie star. They put him on a pedestal. He was very special, you know, to everybody around here, especially to me. And I looked at it, I said, which way should I wanted to go, you know? And I looked at Guy Fisher and I looked at Nick, you know, at Tiny Archibald. And I don't know what it was, but I wanted to be like Guy Fisher.
What was crazy about those games was the bets. The sideline bets. It was incredible. I'm talking about guys betting 10,000.
Nate Tiny Archibald kept whispering to Guy in terms of, you know, like how to make subs or maybe give him some advice on how the game should go. So my remark was, listen, Tiny, if you feel that way about it, you can suit up and play, you know, but I don't care what you do, you ain't gonna win this game. So in Guy's remark was, if you feel that way about it, let's bet $20,000. I said, you ain't setting nothing bet.
Whatever the bet was, man, it was nothing that he could not cover. You know what I'm saying? If he ain't have it in his pocket right then, he'd go in the trunk of his car, pull that money out. Regardless of what it was, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. If that's the bet right there, he gonna fade it.
Not just on the game. A guy bet 10,000 on the game. Bet 10, he wins. Now, in the middle of the game, bet 5,000, he make this shot.
When Guy lost that game against me, he was a little upset. You know, he lost $20,000, not only the game. And he was upset because he felt that he's supposed to have won. He went out his way to recruit some ball players, you know, with big names and big games, but we still came out the victor, so he was pretty upset about it for a little while.
He was speeding on the highway, on the West Side Highway one night,
about 2 in the morning. And when I read the paper the next morning, they were saying that Mr. Guy Fisher caught with $1 million in the trunk.
I mean, niggas can say they haven't seen $100,000 in cash.
Could have been $1 million, it could have been 100,000, could have been whatever. Whatever numbers that they put in the post, you could believe whatever it is, he had it.
Guy Fisher will go on to solidify his mark as one of the most revered black gangsters in the history of the United States. Unfortunately, his luck will come to an end. 2 years after being sentenced to life imprisonment, Nicky Barnes would go on to testify against Guy Fisher and a number of other people.
Guy wouldn't have got tripped up, man, if a nigga wouldn't have told on Guy.
I never did like Nicky because Bumpy, my man, put Nicky Barnes down. I never did like the Bumpy. He was an ex-dope fiend. He did everything wrong, and then he got a chance to make money. Remember, it's not a motherfucker that's born to hustle, but if you got what the people out here want, and you at the best, you can make some money.
Guy Fisher was on 60 Minutes. Everybody wants to see just exactly how he felt in terms of what Leroy Nicky Barnes had done in terms of testifying against him.
I didn't know about Guy and his relationship with Nicky or how they came to meet until I saw the 60 Minute piece.
Nicky Barnes was the biggest drug dealer in New York. You ever kill anybody?
No.
Had other people do it for you?
I guess I would best describe it, yeah. Yeah.
It was while Barnes was in prison that he suspected that the two main women in his life were sleeping with his former business partners. How could he get even? Testify against his old pals, put them in prison, become a hero to the feds.
8 years ago, Nick was the scum of the earth. And then 3 years ago, he became Robin Hood because he was telling.
And I can remember the hype, in the neighborhood when everybody was going around saying, oh, Guy's going to be on 60 Minutes on such and such a day, such and such a time. And I remember all the neighborhood running around, passing it around. Guy's going to be on 60 Minutes. Guy's going to be on 60 Minutes. Talking about Nick.
Nicky Barnes turned government informant and began to tell all he knew. And because his testimony helped put 50 other people in prison, there are those in government who say he should be pardoned. Among the people he informed on were his former drug colleagues and his women. How did he feel testifying against them?
I was overwhelmed by guilt. I was overwhelmed by guilt. I had every reason to testify against them and no reason at all to feel guilty. But it's that street corner indoctrination, that criminal ethic, that street corner value system. It's overpowering. And I started crying on the stand.
From guilt.
Yeah.
And emotion.
I couldn't talk.
Barnes testified about his secret 7-member drug council composed of the most successful black heroin dealers in New York, some of whom attended this birthday party for Barnes in the middle 70s. According to Barnes, they shared an oath of brotherhood and loyalty to one another.
The oath of brotherhood was 7 words. Treat my brother as I treat myself. To treat my brother as I treat myself. And there was a certain mystical dynamic present when we said it.
He posed for the cover of the New York Times Sunday magazine. They called him Mr. Untouchable. Among the interested readers that Sunday morning was President Jimmy Carter. The former U.S. Attorney from New York who prosecuted Barnes was Bob Fisk.
I got a call on Monday morning after the Sunday in which that article appeared from Griffin Bell,
The Attorney General.
the Attorney General, who told me that the President had read the article and had told Attorney General Bell that he felt that the case we had against Barnes in the Southern District of New York was the most important case in his administration because as he read that article, he felt that this case was a classic test of whether our criminal justice system works in this country.
1 year after his indictment, Leroy Nicky Barnes was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. It was while Barnes was in prison that he suspected that the two main women in his life and were sleeping with his former business partners, thus violating the code of honor that he says existed on the street.
A very attractive woman. And in New York, there are several million eligible men. Now, I told her
that we have a hands-off policy to about 20 of them. Now the other 4 or 5 million that are out there, do your own thing. But try and be discreet with whatever it is you decide to do.
From prison, Barnes would call his former friends on the street collect. And through them, he was able to have followed 24 hours a day. The trail soon led to a drug dealer named Tito Johnson.
So I called one of my buddies, He said, Nick, she was on 7th Avenue. In your Mercedes, in your white Mercedes. And he said, I didn't even see him. They called me to the car. He said, Tito called me to the car because he wanted me to see that he had your woman. And Tito was driving my cars. He never had a foreign car. He was a Buick Oldsmobile man.
And that began to eat on you.
Yeah.
And that eventually led to that call to Bill Tendy.
Yeah.
William Tendy is executive U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. The call to him was made by Barnes from the Terre Haute Federal Prison in Indiana.
Tell me what it is you have in mind.
They were a couple of friends of mine that were supposed to be doing things for me,
Yeah?
Well, they're doing things against me, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no way to reach out to get to them, and I want to get back at them, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's my primary reason.
Were you surprised that he was going to do it?
I was surprised that a person like Nicky Barnes would do it, but when I ultimately found out the reason why he was doing these things, it made sense to me.
How important was the information?
I think it was terribly important.
In that?
I think it was terribly important because it resulted in the conviction of Barnes's, the hardcore of Barnes' entire operation.
See, the thing that held me together was my values. And I was tied into the criminal ethics, the street corner values that I had, the oath of brotherhood, the warmth and loyalty that I thought flowed between council members or among the council members and myself. That was gone. I mean, the whole thing exploded.
Was there a drug council?
Oh, the drug council is a myth. It's the first time I heard of council was when I was in court. In 1983.
Guy Fisher, who had a brief affair with Barnes' former girlfriend, Shemeka, was a member of that 7-man drug council, according to Barnes. Fisher is now serving life without parole after Barnes testified against him.
You mean to tell me that you can give someone a life plus sentence because you said he had sex with my girlfriend?
And he's putting people behind bars, helping to make cases for the feds.
There is no justice in terms of that. Man. 8 years ago, Nick was the scum of the earth in terms of court, being in the courtroom in Judge Walker's court. And then 3 years ago, he became Robin Hood because he was telling. It's really sad, I'm laughing, but it's sad.
Though Barnes says now he began to talk against his former drug associates like Fisher out of a motive of revenge, it soon became apparent that freedom was mostly on his mind. And since Barnes knew he could only be released through a presidential pardon, he understood that the government wanted more from him. So he testified before the President's Commission on Organized Crime, wearing a hood, telling the commission about drug operations in New York. And Barnes began to snitch on his fellow inmates as well. Inside prison, Barnes learned about illegal activities that he described to prison authorities.
I'm a bookmaker, and right now on camera I want to lay you 9 to 5 that Nicky Barnes, Leroy Barnes, gets out of jail.
New York gangster Herbie Sperling spoke with Barnes when they were in prison together in New York. And they worked out a drug deal at Barnes' suggestion that eventually resulted in the conviction of Sperling's son.
I'm doing the same sentence that Nicky Barnes was doing. Life parole. Without parole. I've got it the longest in the country. It's worse than a death sentence. A death sentence, you're dead, life goes on. Here you linger and you linger, and sometimes people get depressed. Now, some people get so depressed that they decide to make up a story.
You think he's going to get out?
There's no doubt in my mind. The government has to let him out. This is part of their propaganda ploy. What they're saying is anybody that wants to get out, just make up stories about a lot of people. We got plenty of room. We got a lot of prisons. We'll replace them with you and we'll let you out. No matter what you did, no matter what you do. think he should be given credit for his having cooperated with the government to encourage others to come forward and cooperate and bust up these operations. He essentially, what should happen with him, in my view, is at some point he should be permitted to be released from prison at some point.
Do you think that you should get a pardon after all the pain and misery that you caused?
I think that I deserve some type of relief. Because it's customary. I don't see why policy of the Justice Department should change because of Nicky Barnes.
We talked to old pals of his who are now in Lewisburg prison. They said, listen, he's a snitch. He'll be on the street in no time. They really believe that the only reason that he did it was not because he got religion, but because he wants to get on the street and that you're going to help him do just that.
I think that the realistic situation here has to be that when people turn in, organizations like this account for 50 people being convicted. Everyone he's testified against has been convicted and their case has been upheld on appeal. There has to be some reward for that. That's the only way we can combat this kind of activity.
If they let him out, Barnes says, he would like to teach the young about the dangers of drug addiction. Were he to get out, he would have to remain in the witness protection program, guarded for the rest of his life by the U.S. Marshals.
How do I see the error? Nicky Barnes, Guy Fisher. There is Nicky Barnes would be the book, and the chapters would consist of nothing but opportunities, destructions, glorious moments. To look at Nick's life, but when you open up, you see the chapter on Guy's life. When you go through and you see the rest of the chapters that unfold so many truths and yet still expose so many bones that's buried. So many families that have went from rags to riches. Kids that went to school as a result. Some kids made it out, some didn't. Some did well for themselves. Some are still in prison. Some went to prison and it changed their life. And so you look across the vast time of their era and you can see the good, you can see the bad. But ultimately, each person will end with a choice they have to make. Do I want to go that route? Which will probably end with no, or if you got any sense. But the last chapter of the book would consist of three major things: the prison, the cemetery, or strung out on drugs. Take your choice.